Hey Amarillo, I'm Skylar Gallup, and you're listening to Hey Amarillo, the interview podcast featuring some of the most interesting people and stories of Amarillo, Texas. We record every week at Amarillo College's Innovation Outpost. The IO supports education, workforce development, and industry growth by inspiring and facilitating innovation in the Texas Panhandle. Today's guest is David Elizalde. David is a local businessman, husband, father, and community servant. David's pathway to where he is today and the fierce, unwavering dedication to his work has been a very difficult one. Some would say as difficult as they come. I'll let David walk you down it, but before we do, I do want to share a trigger warning for listeners around the topics of loss, grief, and suicide, as well as alcohol addiction and the harm it can cause. Here's David. All right, David Elizalde, welcome to the Hey Amarillo podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining us. We will get started, if you don't mind, the same way that we do with all of the guests on the podcast, and that's by asking, what is your origin story to Amarillo? Are you from here, from somewhere else? Where'd you get started?
So I was born in Dallas, Texas, but my mom moved me here whenever I was 2 months old, as soon as she could get me here. So here I am. So I've been here all my life, actually.
Okay, so 2 months old. What caused the move from Dallas to Amarillo?
Never asked my mom. Just know this is where I was at.
There you go. Okay, what schools did you come up into?
So I went to Sunrise through elementary, Sunrise, Bowie, and then Caprock, right here on the east side of Amarillo.
Wonderful. It's such a great school.
Yes, ma'am.
What'd you do after high school?
Traveled around a little bit, went to college in, Havre, Montana, and then Kearney, University of Nebraska. And so that's kind of what I did. Went to school for a couple of years and then came back to Amarillo. And then I traveled around for about 3 years around the country doing cable contracting and then came back to Amarillo. Kind of been here ever since.
So Montana, Nebraska, kind of went far away from home. Was that like a desire to see kind of what was outside of Amarillo, or that's just kind of where the jobs and education took you?
Yeah, I would have to say, as growing up with the friends that I did and having that mindset that, we're going to be world travelers, that's what kind of set that in motion, is that I just wanted to see the world. I'd really never been many places as a young man, so going to college and then end up cable contracting. I was in Florida, Chicago, Tennessee. It just gave me the availability to see a lot of things that I never would have imagined.
And what did you see that you liked? What were differences? And then ultimately you chose to come back to Amarillo as home, so you must have missed something about this place.
What I missed is the people and the presentation of, being able to wake up and know that you had people that loved you and cared for you. But out in the world, I've seen the most beautiful sunsets. I've seen beautiful mountains. I met beautiful people. I got to go to air shows like in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, that would just be memorable for the rest of my life. I would get to travel, climb, and just do all kinds of things that most people wouldn't get the opportunity to do, just world traveler.
Yeah, traveling, I think is uniquely helpful as someone is kind of like growing up and learning the world, to see places unlike where you were from.
That's right, especially when you're making money. So
that helps.
You can afford to stay out there. And I was doing cable contracting, and in college, struggling, and then most of my life struggling. But with cable contracting, they paid per piece or however good you are. And so, I went from making $200 or $300 to making thousands of dollars a week, and it really helped me to live a different life. But then you also realize is that it doesn't matter how much money you make, it's how much money you save. And when you're traveling, it costs so much more. So I wanted to be grounded, and being grounded was getting back to Amarillo, and being around like my family.
So explain to me what cable contracting is specifically.
So cable contracting has different facets of it. So you know what cable is, right? You got cable TV. Mm-hmm. And so they need contractors sometimes because they're so busy, maybe to install or to put extra outlets or to catch people stealing. So we put like this blocker in. So back in the day, it wasn't automated. So that was just, boots on the ground, having to go out and get the jobs done. That's part of my job. Sometimes you have to run lines from the pole to the house and hook it all up and make sure it's working and do testing. And so sometimes you could be selling the converters or boxes, that give you capability to have cable, and then you get paid per piece, or you are a salesperson on top of that. So it was interesting. Every job and every place I went, it was a little bit different.
And so to find that kind of grounding, you came back home to Amarillo. And did you start your own company? Is that correct? Do I know that correctly?
I did, but not then. I would come back and, as life lessons go, you learn things the hard way. And it seemed like that was kind of where I did. So I hooked up a couple of people illegally with cable, and that's actually that's kind of a felony.
Kind of a felony.
Yeah. And so if I didn't get out, then I would have been charged. But I never went to court or anything. But people loved me and cared for me, and they said, hey, best thing is you stop doing cable contracting and go on with your life. And so I had to make a transition, and in Caprock, I went to electrical trades, and so all I knew was electrical. So I transitioned from the cable to electrical, and went back to just struggling. Met my wife, and started having kids, and that's when life gets real, when stuff like that happens.
Well, I appreciate the vulnerability in sharing that you made a mistake.
Did.
Right?
Absolutely.
And that you had a network of people, it sounds like, that loved you enough to kind of help you navigate screwing up, which
Yes,
we
ma'am.
all do.
Yep.
And so then we move forward, you start having kiddos. How many kids did you have?
So I had my wife came with the boy. His name is Alan, and he became my son. I met him when he was two years old, and then I'd have 3 girls after that. Yes, ma'am.
Is your wife from here?
She's from Mexico.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
From Juarez.
I see. You guys started having kids. At this point, did you start the electrical company, or where are we at now in work?
So I worked for a local company, and then I wanted to kind of move up a little bit. And so I worked for Davis Electric out of Kansas, and they were doing commercial. Needed to get some of that underneath my belt. So my understanding, during that time, I'd get my master's license, my journeyman's license and master's. But I really wasn't thinking about business. And my wife had Andrea, and Sabrina was in my wife's stomach. So at 34 years old, I was working at Tradewinds Elementary here in Amarillo, and I got caught up in some electricity. And it went from one hand to the other, and it went through my heart. And I died for about 4.5 minutes. But during that moment of my life and understanding is, when you die, there's really not like a lot you're thinking or seeing, right? Because you're dead. But my afterlife experience is what changed who I was, and my daughter Andrea changed the things and places I needed to be in life. So I'll give you an example or an exact recollection of what happened. So I die and I'm in convulsions, but during death, I could see white and black, and that was maybe the electrical charge going through me, because it goes through 0 through 90 on 3 different phases. And so it's going through my heart and kills me, and then I shoot up to heaven. But I don't have a body, right? Like I have vision, I don't have hearing, but I have understanding. So I was traveling through darkness, and there was this white light, like a white piece of light, white piece of paper. And so I'm going through like darkness to this light, and it was like, in real life, if I say, it was like 4 seconds, right? So there I am in darkness. I'm coming through, about to go through the light, and the light was God's love, and it was overwhelming. It was just something that's hard to explain to people that are here on earth, but the closer I got to the light, the more love, and I knew that it was God's love. And if, like, I had arms, I could have just reached out and I could have been through the light. But as soon as I got through the light, like right there, it's so fast, all of a sudden I'm back in my body, and I could smell burning skin. My body was going in convulsions, and I was already getting loaded on a gurney. So which means that it probably been 3.5 to 4 minutes that I had died, because the ambulances were already there loading me up. And I could hear people, I could see people, but that's where I found humility. And I was loaded up, and they were cutting my shirt off, cutting my pants, and then they like cut through my shoes, my boots. But at the time, coming back from cable, making all that money and just being an electrician, I was making $17 an hour. I was struggling. I have 2 kids.
Sure.
My wife and I were moving from mom to mom's house. And I was laying there, and where I was living at the time, I hadn't had water for about 30 to 45 days. I was living with like Evan Tanner and a guy named Kirk Anstein. And it was cold. It was almost, middle of winter. And it was just like I'm laying there going like, man, I lost my life, and I have nothing to give my family. And it was humiliating. And that's where I found humility. I just sat there and I said, I want to do more for my kids, but it was really Andrea was my motivation. I said, I want to do more for my daughter because she was living. And it hurt my feelings that I was in such a place in my life that I couldn't be there for my family. And I wanted to make a difference. And that day I did make a difference. I realized in the next couple of months I would start my own company and I'd get moving with life. And God really hit me with the Mack truck and said, I've got something bigger for you.
Wow. Mm-hmm. What was the recovery, the physical recovery from that injury like?
Really, I don't think I've physically ever recovered because I have heart issues and it's hardened the lower chamber of my heart.
Wow.
But, it was more of a mental balance and determination that would enter my life on another level.
Yeah, hitting you like a Mack truck, it feels quite appropriate for that experience.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So you came out of that and said, I'm going to find a pathway to be with my family more fully, specifically your daughter, Andrea.
I'm going to do more for my family, specifically. There are other things that come with time and understanding, but more importantly is I need to get moving with what God had planned for me, and that was start a business and get moving. And I had no understanding, not a lot of knowledge, and I didn't know a lot of people at that time besides Rodney to my right. He's here with me watching, but he is the only person I knew that had a successful company. So I would look to him and watch his leadership and understanding, and also he had mentored me along the way. He was the guy that I called to ask questions, because a lot of times I found myself lost.
Sure.
So, of course, got to get started another path of life. It's a big deal.
How old was Andrea when you started the business? Like when this big disruption happened and kind of you changed
She was
path?
2 years old.
2 years old.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then how'd that go? How was building your business and raising kiddos and kind of on this pathway to do better and offer more?
It was just, I'm 34 years old, and until I was about 42 years old, it was just a struggle. I'd almost lost my business 3 times. I'd go out to job sites. I bought 4 vehicles from Lincoln Mechanical that was in their graveyard of trucks, and I would buy them for $250 a piece and then fix them up. And so that was kind of like, that was my collage of vehicles to work with. And so when I go to places, people would look at them and go like, this guy. And so it was kind of, just a lot of lessons to learn along the way. So many, yes, ma'am. But for the family, it was good. It was just, everything was a learning lesson to me, and it was difficult. Life was difficult, business was difficult, understanding was difficult, money was difficult, building relationships with banks and people, and, getting denials and just making one step after another, man. It was hard.
Yeah, it's a slog. I grew up with a dad that owned his own business, and so I think I understand from that child's perspective, watching how hard it is sometimes. And so as your family started to grow older, did you find success, kind of some, foundational solidity in the business? Did you get your feet under you?
I did, right around 42, 43 years old, I'd been in business for, over 5 years. Money started coming in, understanding of, different disciplines coming in, people believing in me, getting me at larger jobs, larger contracts coming in. It was slow and go for sure, but absolutely, I started to understand a lot more. My life transitioned. And so I think I had like $32,000 in the bank, and I thought I was rich, before that time. And I was over 40 by the time I had that kind of money in the bank. And I went to my banker, Amy Henderson from Amarillo National Bank, and I told her, I said, hey, look, I don't know that if I want to do this anymore. I'm successful. And she looked at me and she says, okay. She says, well, I think you're wrong. And I think that, I've got a lot of customers, but you're very important to me, and I think that you can do a lot more with yourself. Is there anything else you'd like to do? And I said, yeah, there actually is. I said, Hollabaugh Plumbing asked me to purchase them. And she says, okay, well, how much do they want? I said, well, I want $250,000. She says, go get it. That changed my life.
Wow.
It made me realize that somebody believed in me at that level, not ever thinking about that I needed to believe more in myself, and that my direction would change after that moment, that life. I walked out of there with a different attitude, and I knew that I wanted more and I would do more, and that I had her on my side. So it just changed everything. It was neat. It was a neat transformation.
It's one thing to have the idea that people believe in you. It's another when someone steps into believing in you in such a transformational way.
Absolutely. I needed it. I needed that time in my life, and it was pivotal, and it did transition me for sure. And after that moment, I wasn't stopping. I just moved and, started to really understand it, started to meet different people, because there was two things that happened there. First of all, her believing in me, and then secondly of me having to look deep inside myself and say, hey, having all the money in the world didn't change me and didn't make me happy, but there has to be something more to this than what I can see. And that's when I think that God gave me my second life again of understanding. And it was that, what was my superpower? What would really make me happy? And it wasn't working, it wasn't money, it wasn't traveling, but it was service to people. And I finally found myself grounded, going like, wow, So I asked God, I said, help me to be successful, because the more successful I am, the more I can give to people around me. And that was a really big deal. That was a really big deal.
And then, David, I know that something happened in your life that changed trajectory again regarding your daughter.
Yes. So for almost 5 years now, my daughter was going to graduate from Randall High School.
Andrea.
And Andrea and Elizalde, and she was pretty amazing. She had a couple of weeks to go, and we were having Easter, and we just relaxing, just easy day. We went to church, went to Thompson Park, and about 4:30, 5 o'clock, she says, "Hey, Dad, can I go hang out with my friends for the rest of Easter? I've been hanging out with you all day long." And I said, "Sure, yeah, no problem." And so we went to Wonderland Park, and she was pulling out, and she looked at me, and I looked at her, and I told her, "Be careful." And she shook her head and says, "I got this, Dad." And she would leave, and I'd never see her again. She'd go down the park, didn't exactly do what she said she was going to do, went to where some young kids were drinking.
Sure.
Young kid got in her car. About maybe 45 minutes later, they went joyriding, picked up another person. We're at Wonderland Park. We just got done. Probably we were there for about maybe an hour and 40 minutes, and we got done, and we were heading back home. And it was getting dark, so it's probably right around 8:45. And we get a call that my daughter's been in an accident, and that she had passed away. And there was people kind of like screaming, yelling. Maybe she was alive, maybe she was dead. And the reality is that we would never ever see her again until she was in her coffin. Mm-hmm. And that one mistake would cost her her life by letting somebody drink and drive her car, first of all. And then secondly of all, making the wrong decision to let the other person that got in the car, they were seatbelted in, she was in the center of it. And, when you get alcohol, drugs, pills, anything like that involved in people, then a lot of bad things can happen. And unfortunately, at that moment in life, I can only like I went at that moment, I said, well, I got to understand the whole full deal. So I talked to the police department, I talked to the fire department, I went to where the accident happened. I talked to everybody involved so that I could get a full picture of understanding, because it didn't seem real. It just, nothing made sense. And the only thing that makes sense is for me to maybe relive that moment, because we're getting all this information, like she had wrecked, 75 yards, and, her hands, her feet were laying there, but that wasn't true. But what was true is this is what's true. She loved her life, and she didn't want to die. She held on to dear life, to those people or to the car. And the car has lost control on 335 and Dumas Highway, and they're heading north. And she grabs on, and they go down the ravine. She's still hanging on. Car goes down the ravine, not a ravine, but the side of the highway, and it goes down to the bottom of the road. It goes over a pillar. She's hanging on. Goes across the street, hits another pillar, blows out the tires. She's still hanging on. They were going at high speed, over 100 miles an hour. She didn't lose grasp. She was all in. Then it went up the other side of the bridge, and he hit the bridge, and that's when the car fell over, and it landed on her head on the right quarter panel of the car, and she didn't have a chance. The other two kids would survive, and knocked them out. however many minutes later, they woke up and then they kind of walked away from the site because they didn't want to get in trouble. But they would return. But that's the story of my daughter.
What happened to the driver?
He would go to the hospital. About 4 months later, he wanted to talk to me. So I had some people that were with me while he wanted to come talk to me because, it was a big deal for us to have communication.
Of course.
And, during that communication, he had gone through his own battles, with drugs and alcohol. And he came into the office and he told me,
how old was he?
Crying. He was 17. He was actually 18. And he was crying. He says, hey, look, I apologize. My life, I've had a crappy life. Whenever I was in the hospital, I woke up and all my family was there, and I'd never seen that in my entire life. And I thought I was in heaven. But when I realized I was alive and I knew so much about your daughter, I wish it would have been me that died. I said, good. I wish it wouldn't have been my daughter. I don't know that I wish it would have been you, but I wish it wouldn't have been my daughter. And he apologized and I accepted it. But when he left, he said, look, I learned my lesson. And, I said, your lesson is this, is whenever I get to a point to where I'm doing something, I'd like for you to help out and, speak up against drinking and driving. And he said that he would. At the time I'd already started Andrea's project, a nonprofit organization, but it was just kind of off the ground and kind of like 2-3 months. It was just kind of just me talking to people, having an idea. And he said that he would. But 11 months later, he would be caught at 7 Bar and Grill drinking at 18 years old. He got drunk and he got in an argument with the bouncer, and the bouncer beat him up pretty good. And the next day, he would die of a blood aneurysm. He'd bleed to death.
Oh, my gosh.
So he hadn't quite learned his lesson, apparently.
Wow. All of that is shocking.
It was shocking because, the family never called me when my daughter passed away, but when he passed away, I had people interview me, and I said, look, I was a Christian man. Last thing I wish is death on somebody.
Sure.
I just wish he had learned his lesson. And all of a sudden, that was a problem. But it really wasn't a problem. It was the truth. And I wasn't bashing him. I could only feel for the family that lost their own son, regardless of who he was or what he had done. And I get it, they were hurting as well. But it's a horrible feeling to lose your kid. Worst thing in the world.
Sure. And that they were poor teenage choices that so many teenagers make every single day.
Yes, they do. A lot of people do. Grown-ups, should know better, they don't. Police officers should know better, they don't.
Right.
Young kids, don't hear enough about it and understand the consequences of one bad decision. It happens. And it can happen to anybody at any time if you make the wrong decisions.
Right. So what was the process that led you to start Andrea's project?
Well, I just, as a father, in knowing that there wasn't enough information out there for young kids to understand, that was what I wanted to make a difference so no other family had to go through what I had gone through and what I've been through. And so it was important for me to start something to get to the kids and make a difference in my area and around the area. So that was kind of like what I first thought. And then as it kind of grew and I was able to speak to more kids and Andrea's story got out there, there'd be people from Odessa, Midland, Arkansas, just everywhere asking me to speak because everybody wanted me to go speak with their kids because Mothers Against Drunk Drivers can't be everywhere all the time, and they weren't here. I specifically called and asked if I could start a branch here because that was my direction, and unfortunately, they couldn't. They said I could be a satellite, but that I had to go through Lubbock, and so that's really where Andrea's project came, where I needed to build it and do it here. Yes, ma'am.
In my experience with other people who have gone through just profound tragedy, I've seen other examples where people needed to do something with their grief. Does that resonate with you?
It does, for sure, for a lot of different reasons, because, I did it because I didn't want any other family to go through what I had gone through. Matter of fact, it was 2 or 3 months afterwards, and another young lady had lost her life. And one of the worst things that I found is going to my daughter's accident and seeing pieces of her car and having to pick them up. And so I knew that it would be important to pick up other people's pieces of their vehicle. So that's kind of like where I started, and what I still do. If it's in my area, I'm out there. And then I get a hold of the family and I let them know that I love them and I've been through it. And then I want to consult them and just care for them and let them know, what they're going to go through. So initially it was just because I wanted to make a difference. But mentally, it started to deteriorate the person that I was because I couldn't handle the stress. I would say, okay, the first time that I thank God I had Jeff Barra, with Farmers Insurance, and he went with me, and another person went with me, and we went to our first big school outside of Amarillo. And when I spoke, and we were taking Andrea's car behind us, to show the kids, when I was coming back, it's just all the energy had left out of my body, and I was lost, and it was almost like I had died again, because I could tell you the feeling was I had no energy. And I was sitting there, and it was just so overwhelming mentally and physically that I couldn't move. And the next time I would do something, I'd be around Governor Abbott and talking to him about Andrea's project, and I couldn't walk. And I got in my truck, and there's just tears falling out as fast as they could go. And this Lavisa Matthews, she's just God sent. She's the one that really helped me push Andrea's project forward. And she was there holding my hand and loving me the whole entire time. And she looked at me and said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Yes," but really I wasn't. I'd walk in the house and my wife says, "Are you okay?" And I'm looking at her and mentally I'm going like, I'm okay. But just these tears are just coming out, and I'd never in my life had that happen. And they're just falling out. And I lay in bed and my temperature gets to about 91 degrees and I'm dying. It was just so difficult to be able to start to function and to wake up in the morning and just go to work and do my daily activities, because I was losing myself, because it was so difficult to get out and speak and talk to people and try to make that difference. It was just so.
Why did you keep doing it? I mean, obviously, the idea to prevent any other family or any other father from experiencing what you experienced is clearly a very, very honorable one. But you are also a human. You are a father who lost his daughter. And so why did you keep telling that story at such great cost to yourself?
Yeah, well, it came to a point to where I couldn't actually. It wasn't very long ago, whenever, maybe about 8 months ago, I was laying in bed, and that's whenever, you just realize that something's got to change. And actually, it was last year. Lavisa and I was in Borg on a 2-day ordeal. It was a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then the border thing was Friday and Saturday. And it was on a Tuesday, and I was laying in bed, and I was going like, man, I just don't think I can do this anymore. And Phyllis Nickham is just, want to tell you, man, God has his reasons for everything. And I could tell you some stories, and you'd be like, wow. But I'm laying in bed, and I'd lay in bed most of the morning, and then I'd get up and go to work and do my stuff. People really didn't know, because I didn't really reach out to a lot of people and let them know how badly I was struggling. Because, suicide was definitely on the top of my mind. A lot of other things, just everything coming together. So can I, am I failing at this? What am I supposed to do? Doing a lot of praying. And Phyllis called me, and she says, and she didn't really hang out with me often, but she just knows me. She says, "Hey, what are you doing?" I said, "Nothing." She says, "You're laying in bed, aren't you?"
Yeah.
She didn't know. She hadn't talked to me for 6 months. And I said, "Yeah, I'm laying in bed." And she says, "Are you okay?" And I said, "No." And she says, "Look, there's a lot of people that love you, a lot of people that care about you, and I care about you, but you're killing yourself. And the thing about it is that you need to make a decision, and this is where you're at. It's about mindset. And the problem is that you're focusing on how you feel and the things you're doing, or you focus on the lives that you're changing. And if you can't do that, and you can't get mentally prepared to do that without getting beat up every day, give it up. It's that easy. It's that simple. It took a little bit to think about what she said, and it was a turning point in my life to sit there and say, well, it's about mind control. If I can go and I can speak about my daughter, and I can look at the people, and I see the joy in their face, and I can give shirts, and I can hear testimonies from other family and appreciation and get those letters, that's what makes a difference. Stop focusing on pulling her car. Stop focusing on my daughter's death, but just use it as a tool. Know that my daughter's smiling upon me. When I get to heaven, she'll say, Dad, great job. Then I could change how I felt. And it works 95% of the time. Sometimes it doesn't. I gave a speech last week or 2 weeks ago. I was at closing at the TxDOT 2025 conference, and I lost it. But it isn't very often that I lose it anymore, to the degree where it just takes me a few days to get back to where I need to be. So,
mental discipline is really hard in the best of cases. So you talk about this fundamental mindset shift to focusing on the people you're helping. Tell me some of those stories. Who have you helped?
Well, I've helped a lot of people, about 17 families. We partnered up with TxDOT to put signs across the state of Texas, when they lose a family member on a state highway. And so all those families and the 17 signs that we put up, I get to go pray with the families. I get to hold their hands. We get to pay for half the sign, and no matter where it is, we're going to help those families out. So, it's kind of a really big deal to be able to, unite with families.
And that's across the state, correct?
Across the state, yes, ma'am. Yes. The last one was Bobby. Bobby, he lost his life for a drunk driver that was crossing over the road, and he was on his phone doing the right thing, and car ran across and killed him. And I was able to go down South Texas, by Big Bend and put a sign up for him. Lubbock, just all over the state of Texas, yes, ma'am. So Andrea's project does get the opportunity to reach those people, hug the families, love on them. And we don't support all those, but at least we put something out there. Darla, her daughter, her name is Morgan. She passed away on Sansi. Drunk driver was going over 100 miles an hour while they were right before Christmas, going to go ski, and it hit their vehicle and it took her life. Well, last Saturday they put flowers on the memorial, the sign memorial on the side of the highway, which was quite beautiful and amazing because now they have a place to see where their family passed away and have a memorial. So that's pretty awesome.
It's impactful.
Yes, ma'am.
And as I understand it, you guys are working through the legislature to work on laws against drunk driving. Talk to me a little bit about that focus of your organization.
So because Andrea's project is, unfortunately, you end up dealing with a lot of people and you have to be political. Mm-hmm. We deal with Greg Abbott and deal with our state representatives, here locally. And, I've met Greg Abbott twice. We talk about sobriety 24/7 because we feel very passionate that after COVID, it took 2 to 3 to 4 years to be able to go in court if you had a DWI. And by that time, people had 2 or 3 or 4 DWIs, and we needed to make a change. And so change is that if you get caught with the DWI, that you need to have, instead of just probation or their monitoring systems don't work. There's a program called Sobriety 24/7 that's in 7 other states, and it's 85 to 91% effective on recidivism of people getting another DWI. And so I want to reflect on that, and I've worked with Natalie White and Amarillo with a substantial amount of people to push that for the last 2.5 years, and we're just a lot of questions and a lot of work because when you get into politics, it just takes a long time to get something pushed through and something worked out, more importantly, because there's a lot of legal, perspectives to that. And so Andrea's project worked with Texas A&M and TxDOT to get a $450,000 grant passed to Texas A&M to do research and study for our Amarillo economics to see if this program would work and how beneficial. And so we have scientific proof of where it's at because Amarillo is second in the state per capita with alcohol-related accidents. We got problems here.
Wow.
And a lot of people don't know that. We got a lot of people getting killed. Last week, somebody got hit by a drunk driver. Last month before, somebody got killed. It's just quite often. And so they did the study, and statistically they showed with sobriety 24/7 how effective it would be in our area. And so now we have a lot of people listening, especially, Randall and Potter County are all working together to get this together. We're so close now that we just need a couple of judges to sign off on it.
And what is the program? Can you explain what that is?
Sure. Sobriety 24/7 says you get a DWI, you go through the process, you don't have to get bonded out, you agree with these set standards of rules that says that I won't have a drink. The judge might say you won't have a drink for 90 days, 120 days, a year, whatever it is, and you're not going to have a drink. And so you get tested twice a day, 7 days a week until your probation is over. And then, some people are deferred, some people are on their first, second. But if you get caught drinking or test hot, you instantly get arrested for 24 hours. You go to jail. Get out of jail, you get a chance to, you go through, you find alcohol in your system, you get thrown in jail, you're off Andrea's program, and you go back and you go through the process, you get bonded out, and you go through the regular courts.
Right.
So that's what it is that you're being held responsible on another level. So for the entire time that you're on probation or getting ready to see the judge, or for whatever days they dictate you won't have alcohol in your system, you won't. And if you're traveling, we'll put a scram on you, and it'll go around your ankle, and it'll show if you have alcohol 24/7. So imagine that. And so if you have problems or you have alcoholism, then we'll help you out to get connected, and Andrea's project will put you in the right people and help you get through that. So it'll alleviate that problem, because a lot of people, they want to commit suicide, they had a breakup, they don't know how to deal with alcohol, they're alcoholics, and people need help. And when you just get put on probation, they don't have that. But Andrea's project will provide that. And also, that being said, one of the big problems that we have is there's not enough room in our jails to keep people there.
Yep.
You don't go to jail. You get out of jail, you sign the papers, you judge blesses you, and you're instantly on the streets. And next day you're out twice a day, 7 days a week, breathing apparatus, wherever we have it set, showing you don't have alcohol in your system.
Additionally, and if you're following the program and you're not in jail, you can keep your job.
Absolutely.
Pay your bills. You can,
Yes,
I think what interests me is the idea that this provides structure in an immediate way, avoiding the court backlogs and overcrowding problems in jails.
Win-win situation.
If you
really
choose to.
is.
If
Yes,
you choose to,
ma'am.
right? And if not, then you can kind of go the traditional route.
Yes, ma'am.
So we're close to seeing this implemented in the Amarillo area. You're waiting a couple of sign-offs?
Sign-offs, we're just right there waiting just to put it together. And what we're really waiting for is the logistics of documentation and paperwork that backs the structure of the program for Amarillo, Texas. And that's where Texas A&M comes through in that grant. So they're putting all that together, because we can't do it ourselves. We're so limited. I try to do it myself, but it's just too much. It's not what I do. But
Sure.
We have people now that care enough about this program and Andrea's project that are pushing it through, for sure.
Yeah, I know the organization has grown quite a bit. Talk to me about the network. I mean, you've got staff members.
Yeah, we have 2 staff members. Shanna, is our new executive director, Shanna James, and she's a doctor, and she does a fantastic job pushing it. Lavisa Matthews was running it before, and we just got somebody from the state where, we pay like half the money, and they come in and they're able to help out. So she has her pushing a lot of her agenda. And then we have a board of 12 people, Amarillo people that care about, Andrea's project and the safety of our roadways and teaching kids, the dangers of drinking and driving. And so, yeah, we have Victims Impact Panel now that every Tuesday, and now we have the second one from the courts, it's 2 a month, is that everybody gets a DWI has got to come visit us and see us. And we get to tell them our stories, and then Shanna gives them the why you don't drink and drive and why you got a DWI, and she does the breakdown of it on another level. So we give the story, she gives the breakdown, then it's about an hour and 30 minutes, and these people go along the way. And, as of last month, a year and a half of doing this, not one of those people have gotten another DWI that we know of. So the stories are impactful.
Yeah, helping more people.
Yes, ma'am.
What have you learned about our community through this experience?
What I've learned is that it's very difficult to get anything out there to everybody in today's world because not everybody is looking at the same thing like they used to. Back in the 80s, everybody was glued on TV, Channel 10, Channel 7, the news. It's just hard. So it's hard to get information to everybody at the same time. There's still a lot of people. I can walk out right now and talk to 10 people and ask if they've heard of Andrea's project. We've been around already for 4 years, and they'd say no. So that's the big thing. Doesn't matter how much money we spend or what we're doing, or because there's so many people with good causes. It's just that's what I've seen. Just getting out there, everybody's difficult.
Yeah, it's a pretty saturated nonprofit market.
Yes, ma'am.
What are your hopes for the organization for the next 5 years?
Get sobriety 24/7. Work on that for 2 years to make sure that it's successful. If it doesn't work here, then I start traveling to a city that they believe that they also, because we already know that other moms and dads have lost their kids, and there's other communities that are well in tune and understand what we're doing and would love to have it. So I start traveling, and I do that somewhere else, and I get it started because I just need a pilot program for Greg Abbott to see and say, hey, look at where it was and look at how it's working. I just need the numbers. And so now that we have like 95% of it all ready to go, I can go anywhere at any given time, and I can absolutely implement that with the team of people, and we can start it somewhere else. So it just depends on what happens. If I have to go that route, then that's what I'm going to do. But hopefully if it's 24/7 goes here, work on it 2 years, continue to grow the base of Andrea's project, continue to get more money so we can do more things, because before we didn't really have many fundraisers or need the money, but now, we need vehicles to pull Andrea's project that's enclosed. We have an executive director, and a doctor that requires, a substantial amount of money with insurance and so forth. We have gas, we're going to conferences, it all costs money. And so, fundraising and getting enough money to do the things we need to do, and to continue the relationship with TxDOT and Texas A&M, and just build our network of people across the state.
Reflecting on the arc of this conversation from, the injury you sustained when you were an electrician, through some of your business challenges, and certainly, of course, the loss of your young daughter, what I do feel in that story is a really strong sense of determination.
Yes, ma'am, 100%.
Where does that come from?
Wrestling. Whenever I was 11 years old, my mom shot off to California, so I was here by myself. And so I was from house to house. And my sisters all became drug addicts. I have 3 sisters and a brother that was 21 and 11, and I watched him get murdered in the front of my house. And so, what do you have to give in or give a lot? And I need to give a lot to myself. And so I moved to friends' houses. I moved to families' houses, and until I graduated. And so then I was kind of like just a modern day vagabond, and doing my thing and really moving without direction. But today I don't move that way. I've learned so much. I'm intentionally do the things that I need to do to get to where I need to go. And wrestling taught me that. I was wrestling in Dallas one time, and I was at the Cotton Bowl Classic. And it was the only time I'd lost in 3 years. I was in 10th grade, and before I started 10th grade, between high school and 10th grade, and I went to Dallas, and they didn't have my weight, so I had to wrestle like 3 weights up. And this fat kid beat me by a couple of points, and I just looked at my coach, and it was Coach Harmony, Henry Harmony from Amarillo, from the Maverick. And I went over to him, and I hugged him, and I cried on him for about 5 minutes. He couldn't peel me off. And I hated the way that defeat felt. And I knew that I never wanted to ever lose again. And I didn't. I went through high school. I never lost a wrestling match. I won every match. I got outstanding state wrestler. I fought in the shoot fights. I became a world champion. And then in real life and working, I was one of the best in cable contracting. And in business, I always want to be successful and do the best I can. And I think I am because of the way I treat my people, and because I care, and how I care for my community. It isn't so much of the jobs that we're doing. And that's what I try to implement, is structure with the people that work for me, and leadership.
It sounds like you do this quite a bit, but if you wouldn't mind sharing with me what you would tell someone going through profound, unexpected grief.
2 things I'd tell them, 2 sets of people. So if you believe in God, you ain't getting through it without God. Give your life and hope and love to Him, and your prayers on a daily basis because you're going to need God in your life. Second, people that don't believe in God is that you need to believe in God. You need to believe in something. And whatever you believe in, give it to whoever the higher power is and focus on that to get over your grief because it's hard to talk to people that don't have faith. And so, whatever you believe in, just believe in it and know that everything's going to be okay. You'll come out of it. And I believe I come out of it stronger. You'll come out of it. Like when I came out of it, it's not coming out of it. Like I can't wait till the day that I die. But while I'm here on earth, I'm going to do the best that I can. That's how I am. That's how I feel. And that's what I know because I got somewhere else better to go. And I believe wholeheartedly I'll see my daughter again in heaven and the people that died that go to heaven. I believe that. So love the people that are here. Give as much as you can of yourself because life is short.
Does your marketing feel like a shot in the dark? Are your social media posts getting lost in the scroll? Unlock your business's potential with SKP Creative. They know your audience and design posts that reflect your brand and drive real engagement. From scroll-stopping social media content to powerful traditional marketing, graphic design, and website development, SKP Creative covers it all. Are you ready to elevate your feed and turn your marketing into a success story? Visit skpcreative.com today. All right, we're back with David Elizalde. David, this is the part of the show we call 8 Straight. So I've got 8 questions for you, and you can answer them in as much or as little detail as you'd like.
Perfect.
Okay, let's get going. When you think of Amarillo 10 years from now, what do you hope for?
Actually, I hope for a little slower growth. We're, I guess, the largest growing city in the state right now because of AI. So hope it slows down a little bit.
Other than wind, what does this area have too much of?
Land, barren land.
Oh, barren land. And what does it not have enough of?
Clean water.
What is your favorite local building?
Santa Fe building.
Beautiful. And your favorite local restaurant?
That one was tough when I was thinking about it. I'd have to say Solar 55 at the moment.
It is good. I'm also glad because that location was a little bit cursed for a little bit.
Has been. That gives you understanding that any place with the right business can survive because I thought that place was jinxed for sure.
Yeah. I also enjoy Solar 55. How do you describe Amarillo to people outside of the area?
Flat, great people. Paul Dura Canyon, second largest, canyon in the state of Texas, and Big Texan.
Okay, I took my Big Texan question off of here, but now I have to ask, when was the last time you went to the Big Texan?
The last time I went to the Big Texan was 3 months ago with Bobby Lee.
Okay, so you go often?
Because of him, yes, I do. I go at least 4 times a year now.
Very good, certainly a staple. What is the most underrated aspect of living here?
The opportunities to succeed. It's quite easy.
And when was the last time you went to Palo Duro Canyon?
Last month.
Oh, good. For hiking?
No, we were on a old car tour.
Oh.
And so we had 4 cars that were, over 20 years old, and we went cruising down there, and it was pretty cool.
Nice.
Yes, ma'am.
That sounds lovely.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, David, I'd like to conclude these episodes by asking my guests to endorse something. If there's something that listeners don't know about, what would you have them know?
That's easy. Andrea's Project. Support Andrea's Project. AndreasProjectTX.org. Get on, see what we're doing. Support our cause. Understand that we're out there not just making our roadways safer. We're trying to make Texas safer. And until the day I die, I'll consistently and constantly work on just making this world better.
Well, David, during our short conversation today, I certainly find that to be true.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your story and for your work in our community.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm so excited about the upcoming Amarillo Symphony season. The Symphony's kicking things off with movie Music Under the Stars at Hodgetown on September 6th, followed by a Highland Fling with a live bagpiper and Tchaikovsky's famous piano concerto as their first concert in the Globe News Center. The season continues with the stunning power of Berlioz's Symphonie Fantastique, the cosmic journey of Holst's The Planets, and Amarillo's beloved Happy Holiday Pops concerts. The Amarillo Symphony provides an exciting concert experience whether you're going for a date night or celebrating the holidays with your friends and family. With concerts running September to April, you don't have to miss a single note. Visit amarillosymphony.org for tickets and more. That concludes this episode. Thanks tremendously to David Elizalde for the interview. For more information about Andrea's project, visit andreasprojecttx.org. Thanks to SKP Creative and the Amarillo Symphony for supporting this podcast, and to Angelina Marie for editing every week. If you're interested in supporting the podcast, visit heyamarillo.com. Thanks for listening. This has been episode 415 of Hey Amarillo. I'm Skylar Gallup, and we hope you'll come back next week.